Welcome to the Let's Talk Basketball podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Miller, and we are produced by Jude McLaren. Thank you for joining us for this week's podcast, and please help us out by subscribing on our to our podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you are watching, and please give us a follow on Twitter. Today's podcast is brought to you by our sponsors, both right here in beautiful San Marcos, Texas. Pie Society is an excellent stop in San Marcos for great New York-style pizzas made with the freshest ingredients, local beers on tap, and overall fun and cool vibe. And come into Zelik's Ice House for their happy hour drink specials, spacious outside patio, and a great time with your friends. We are excited to welcome Coach Jason Burton, the head women's basketball coach at the University of North Texas, who in his first season set a school record 23 wins and an American Athletic regular season championship, an absolute rock star in the coaching business. Coach, thanks for coming on our podcast today.
Dan, appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, man, I know you do such a great job. I've kept up with you, of course, when you were at Commerce and now in 1 year at North Texas. The first thing I just have to ask, your first year, 23 wins. What was special about this year, and how did you get it turned around so fast?
Everything was special about this year. You know, you live for seasons like this. They don't always come around. Definitely don't come around in the first year more times than not. And so special for a lot of reasons. You know, I had a chance to bring two of my former players with me over here. From Commerce to North Texas, and they both had really successful seasons. Brought two former coaches with me as well, and then just were able to mesh a lot of people together quickly. And that's what was special about this year was that, everybody, culture is a hot word, and that was it though. That was it for us. Like how we did it was we got the people right, and that's hard to do. Dermot Jennings, I give him a lot of credit because he was one of the coaches. I've known him for a while, but he was already at North Texas. We retained him, and but even before he knew he had the job, he was trying to help me out. He was trying to help me keep the right ones on the bus, so to speak, and get the ones that needed to get off the bus. And so we did that. We only signed 4 players, 2 of them which were formerly with me, and then 2 other players, and then found a way to do it with a bunch of players that were previously here. And we thought that there was a lot of talent already here. It was just a matter of getting people healthy, staying healthy, and then finding a way to gel. And I think that, my staff was phenomenal. And I give Brittany Brown and LaDerica, I said LaDerica was my double, Brittany Brown and Leah Foster, Dr. Leah Foster, a lot of credit for the leadership program that we went through at the beginning, but just I think that kind of set the tone with culture. And one of the things I talked about we talked about TABC off air, but I told everybody at the TABC clinic this year, and talking about culture, we treat culture like we treat offense and defense. And so, just like we spend time watching offensive clips and defensive clips, we spent time watching culture clips, right? And what does our culture look like in practice? And what does our culture look like in games, and how do we want it to look like? And we, I think Coach Jennings did a great job mid-season. We brought in What Drives Winning clip. I don't know if you've ever watched that show, but they do a great job as far as culture, and they had a piece on Iowa basketball, and kind of on that run that they made, not this year, but the year before,
right,
about their culture. And so we just spent a lot of time watching it, and our players, credit to them, they bought into they wanted to win, and they bought into doing the things that it took to win. And some of them got tired of seeing themselves have negative body language or whatever. We talked about mistake response a lot, but I think we did a great job this year of visualizing what winning that day looked like. And I think when we started to lose games, we lost back-to-back home games in February, and we hadn't lost at home all year this year. And we realized we had got away from what was allowing us to win games this year. And we were winning games because we were focusing on us. We were focusing on the details of us, and that was it. And we weren't looking ahead. And when we started to look ahead, we started to talk about cutting down nets and winning trophies. That's when we had slippage, and so we had to get back to what does it look like when we're successful, and that's how many PTs are we getting in games? Are we sprinting to pick people up off the floor? Are our huddles connected? And all those little things, like when a team looks like they're winning, they're probably winning, and it matters. And so we drilled that home this year, man. And I give our staff and our team a lot of credit.
Oh man, I love that, coach. Offense, defense, culture. You have to have that culture in place, before your system. If your system isn't working, it don't matter what you have. And I love that fact that you guys are putting such an emphasis on that. Can you walk me through what you might be looking for when you're watching video, maybe on practice, as far as culture clips? I know you mentioned the positive touches and the
Yeah,
wrapped up huddles.
yeah.
Mhm.
So obviously, I think some of the easy things are are you celebrating your teammates?
Right,
Right? Are you
right.
celebrating your teammates? When a shot goes in, is the bench up? It's easy to see when you're on your side in the second half. Like, are you that one person that's still sitting down when your teammate makes a shot, or is everybody up? And we got to the point where we were consistently having to back people off the floor for excessive celebrations. And I would much rather
Mm.
have that.
Love
I'd
that.
rather have
Yep.
to reel it in than try to get people up. And so we talked about that. And a lot of times early in the season, it was like, why are there only two people standing up versus, later on, it's everybody standing up, and that's
Yep.
consistent. And then whenever there was slippage, we talked about it. So that's one thing. Are we pointing to the passer? Like, we're talking about little things you talk about
Yep.
earlier. Like, man, your teammate just made a great pass. Yes, you scored it, but she's the one that got you open. Same thing with like great screens. The best play in basketball to me is the charge. Are we sprinting to pick up our teammate
Mhm.
whenever that happens? And so we have a play this year. And it's great. I have a player. The Desiree Kern was one of the players that came with me from A&M Commerce, and she hadn't taken a charge. She hadn't purposely taken a charge in her entire career. And she was in her 5th year this year. One of the players that had the COVID year, and she
Mhm.
takes a charge. She purposely takes a charge. And it's conference play. It's probably January or February, and she like shocked herself. And it's on the far end, so she gets up off the ground and she sprints over to our bench and she chest bumps me. Um, and I say this, like, we always talked about culture, but this was the first year that we really started watching the clips and really had this high of a level of just emphasis about that stuff. And so, and we really talked about charges with her.
Right.
And so for her to get that and have that play and celebrate the way she celebrated, it was an awesome thing. And so we got a chance that next day. She was looking forward to it, right? Like, we're sitting
Right.
in the film and we're watching the clips from the previous day, and she was looking forward to seeing her charges, because we always highlighted charges
Right.
the next day. And man, those little things all the time. And I can go through a bunch of other ones, but those are just the simple things, right?
Yep.
Like, on the negative end, we're looking at, like, what is your mistake response?
Mhm.
I turn the ball over. What am I doing? Am I the last one back after I turn the ball over because I'm mad about something? I miss a shot. What's my missed shot response? What's my turnover response? What's my man that scored on me response? Like, we talked about the response to negative plays a lot, because the game is a game of runs, and
Right.
you're not going to play a perfect game ever. And so it's consistently, what am I doing after this play that didn't go the way I wanted to go?
Yep.
Am I responding the right way? Because 9 times out of 10, if I respond the right way, I'm going to make up for it on the other end of the floor. And so if we can control those little things, we can control those little games within a game and not have negative responses, it gives us the best chance to win games. And so those were the things that we talked about a lot. And we talked about it in practice all the time. Like, shooters are going to, a great shooter is going to shoot 38% from three, and the really great ones are in the low 40s.
Mhm.
There's very few people that are shooting in the low 40s from three. You're talking about, if somebody's shooting 35, 36% from three at this level, you're excited about that,
Right.
right? So you're missing majority of the threes you shoot. If you miss the first 2 shots, is your head down already, or what are you doing? And that's one of the things we constantly were trying to give and feed confidence, and we wanted players and teammates that were feeding confidence, and the more we had that, it just allowed us to be able to be a team that forced a lot of turnovers, but we still turned the ball over a lot. We were a team that
Right.
got to the free throw line a whole lot, but we missed a lot, and so we left a lot of points out there, but we still found ways to win games. And so we're going to keep growing this thing, but those are staples of our program.
Absolutely. I love that, coach. And we talk about that a lot with our guys here, that having that next play mentality, which I know it's hard sometimes, when a call doesn't go your way, also, maybe official, or like you said, missing shots. And it's so important in basketball, obviously.
Yeah. Control the controllables.
Control the controllables. Coach, I wanted to ask you about your defense. Watching on Synergy, it really popped how hard your ladies played. I mean, whether you're in your press, whether you're in your zone, whether you're in your staple man-to-man defense, it just seemed that effort was there every game that I was watching. What's the first thing you do in the beginning of the year when you're setting and building your defense with your team in practice? And then going along with that, is there anything that you do daily in practice, whether it's shell drill or certain drills, just to get your ladies to play so hard?
It's funny because we probably do a lot more offense than we do defense.
Okay.
we do an elite job of game plan. There's certain staples that we want to be really good at. And I think one of the things that I think allows us to be good man-to-man defense is we set the tone with how hard we're going to play all the time. And so there's certain drills that we're going to do daily that have nothing to do with defense. It just has to do with how hard we're playing. And so there's a certain culture that we want when it comes to toughness and just pace of play, right? So we feel like if we can play through plays and we can play with a certain pace, we're able to make up for a lot of things. Now we always harp on certain things, like we don't want any uncontested shots, right? Like that's not an excuse. So one drill we do all the time is to start practice. We're probably doing it 3 or 4 times a week is a 4-on-3 communication drill. We do it for about 4 minutes. You're putting the defense at a disadvantage. Offense can't move. They're moving around the perimeter. But they got to talk. Like they have to call ball every time. And they have to say it in a manner in which everybody can hear. And they got to close out with a high hand. And then they got to go and chase the rebound down. And so that is a tone setter for us in practice all the time. So if we can be a great man-to-man team as far as on ball, if I can be great on ball, if I don't have to have help, then great. But we do that drill so that when we do have to have help, we're moving with a certain pace, right? And so that is the one thing that we do all the time just to set the tone in our practice, like disadvantage drills defensively. And not allowing us to have a play where we're not sprinting to the contest. And then we everything we do, we're always rebounding the miss. So if we're doing a shooting drill, we're always rebounding the miss. So we're always talking about, are we hunting rebounds? Like we want to be an elite rebounding team. And so, and you can't get a stop defensively without getting that, right? Another thing that we want to do just from a culture standpoint is that, you know, we want as many possessions in the game as possible. And so we are going to press. Like if there's a dead ball or there's a free throw situation, we're probably getting some type of press because we want to have more possessions in that game. And so there's certain things within that press that we're going to do, and that's game plan wise. And I just think that, yes, go back to your question, we're doing shell a lot. And we tweak our shell based on who we're playing, what type of play they're going to do. And Coach Jennings and Coach Brown do a great job with the defensive side of things. And if we're going against a team's heavy ball screen, we're doing a lot of ball screens within our shell. But we do some form of shell every day. It's just not the same. It's not the same vanilla shell, or it's not just passing cut. Like it's shell based on who we're going to play. And then 2 other things that we do a lot. We do a thing called kill drill, and you know, trying to get 3 stops in a row. And we do that whether it's we're working on our zone defense, we're working on our man-to-man defense, and a lot of times we'll do kill drill versus another team's top 3 sets. Right. And so if we can get stops versus that team's top 3 sets or top 3 actions, and we do it with not just our first unit, but all of our units, we can do that, then we feel really good going into a game, right? And that's one thing that we try to do a lot of times is, can we guard a team's staple actions on a regular basis? And then we focus on, you know, what can we take away once it comes to the season. In the off season, though, it's more about ball screen defense, a lot of one-on-one stuff. Can you guard your man, whether it's in the post, on the perimeter? Can we guard our man one-on-one? The more we don't require help, the better. And a lot of rebounding stuff, just one-on-one rebounding stuff. And everything we do, every drill we do, we end it with a rebound.
Love that, Coach. So much to unpack there. So first, that was my next question. You're one-on-one. When you're working one-on-one, offense misses shot, you're still fighting for that rebound each and every time. You're not just miss shot, switch, and go to the end of the lines because you're hunting rebounds. Yeah.
So one rebound drill we do. I used to call it Bynum drill, but people don't remember Will Bynum that played at Georgia Tech a long time ago. But I just remember watching a clip on Georgia Tech a long time ago, and they talked about this drill that they would do. and it's a one-on-one drill where you have a person at both wings and a person at the top of the key, and it's kind of like kill drill, but you got to get 3 stops in a row.
Yep.
Okay, and I roll it out to you. You're the first person. I get a stop. I'm going to the next person, right? And you can put a dribble limit on offense or not, whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I have 2 opportunities to get 3 stops in a row. And they would always put Will Bynum on that last spot. And he was always that person that he was going to score on you. And it was like, if you could get through that drill and get through Will Bynum at the end, then you were a really good one-on-one defender. And so we like to do that drill a lot of times to start practice. We'll divide them, and sometimes we divide them guard post. Sometimes we just mix them up half and half, and so that bigs got to guard guards and guards got to guard bigs. But we work on getting 3 stops in a row. And you got 2 opportunities to do so.
Right. Getting that kill, 3 stops in a row. Love it.
Yeah.
Going to your 4-on-3, 3 players on defense and the 4 players on offense. What do you do with your players if they don't get a hand up or they don't talk on defense? Yep.
Everything's a point.
Okay.
Everything's a point. So, and this is rapid fire.
Yep.
So to score it offensively, I normally pass the ball to whoever. And we start with 2 people on the block, 1 at the nail. So the person at the nail should be getting one of the top 2 spots. And then the person on the block, you got the corner responsibility of the first pass if I pass to the corner. And so every time there's a closeout with no high hand or they don't call ball, I just say point.
Yep.
And that means offense got a point because defense already didn't do their job. The only how you can get a stop or point defensively is if you get a deflection or you get a turnover.
Okay.
If you get a deflection or a turnover, defensively you get a point. So basically you're playing defense to get the offense. Offensively, you get points if they don't call ball, if they don't have a high hand. Offensive rebounds are a point, but every other shot is 2 points. So if you hit a 3, it's still only worth 2 points. But that's how we scored. And then so defense, if you get the rebound, you outlet to a coach, you're sprinting to one of the 4 spots, and then one of the people from the baseline is coming on.
Okay.
Offensively, if you get the offensive rebound, you can score it right there at the basket, or you can kick it to a teammate back on the perimeter, and it's back to just stationary on the perimeter.
Yep.
And so, we harp on making great passes, forcing people to, if we can pressure the ball, like if you can get to the ball and pressure up on the ball, they don't have a dribble. So that's and then you can take away the next passes, right? There's strategies to this game. And so the more you force people to make bad passes, the better chance you give yourself to get a stop. And it's the same thing defensively. Like the more we can pressure up, the more we can make you take a step backwards, the more we create advantages for ourselves. And everything we want to do offensively, defensively is how can we create an advantage and keep an advantage?
Right. Exactly. I love that, Coach. Switching then to offense and creating your advantage. What are things in your offense? One thing I know obviously is your pace is a fast pace, and you utilize your defense to create some offense.
Correct.
How do you give your ladies freedom and balance that, with coaching and calling, sets or actions? How do you balance that, Coach?
Man, my favorite drill that we do, we didn't do it a lot this year just because of numbers, man. We were kind of banged up this year, and it's really incredible that we were able to win as many games as we won this year because there were a lot of practices where we're practicing with 8 or 9 people. But my favorite drill is a drill we call Michigan State drill, and it's a disadvantaged transition drill.
Okay. Yep.
And you may have seen it before, but it's a drill that I really, really love it. And we started with a free throw. And there's 2 people on the floor. So two people are lined up on the free throw line as rebounders, and one person is shooting it. And so if you miss the free throw, it's -1. You get no points for making the free throw, but it's -1 if you miss the free throw.
Okay.
And then that starts the 2-on-1 break. So Mr. Make, you're starting the 2-on-1 break.
Yep.
And they got 1 shot on the break.
Yep.
There's no rebound on that one time. On the 2-on-1, you just got to score on 2-on-1. That's one thing that we feel strongly about. Like you have to score on the 2-on-1.
Yep.
Right. And then, so on the transition, the one person is going down and 2 of our teammates are coming back. So it becomes a 3-on-2.
Yep.
And you're working on your 3-on-2 transition defense and offense. And we got certain rules inside the 3-point line. If nobody's directly in front of you, you should be going to score it.
Yep.
if you are directly in front of me, I have created an advantage for my teammate, and now I'm passing. If you're on the side of me, I'm going to score that thing.
Yep.
Right? Like you take the contact, you're going to score it. But now, if I do miss on a 3-on-2, one of my teammates is not blocked out, and they should be an elite rebounder at that point.
Right.
But as long as nobody's directly in front of you, then you're going to score that thing. And so that way, it just takes the thinking out of it. Right? Yep. And so it goes from 2-on-1 to 3-on-2 to 4-on-3 to 5-on-4 to 5-on-5.
Yep.
And as you start getting into 5-on-4 and 5-on-5, now you start talking about what's a great shot and when do I need to start running offense.
Right.
So you still want to look for your kick aheads. Like we should have a rim runner every time. We got people running their lanes. Everybody's transition offense is different. We still believe in, we're going to sprint to the corners. We got a rim runner. And we got so many points this year off of rim running. Tamisha Lampkin for us was one of the best rim runners in the country. She finished number 7 in the country field goal percentage, and she was really top 5 almost the whole year because she rim run.
Yep.
And she would beat people up the floor. And that's a telling you, man, like if she didn't score it, she drew so much attention that she created an advantage for us because she was making 2 or 3 people go to the paint. And all of a sudden we're either getting a layup on the backside or we're getting wide open threes in transition. And so, we still want to shoot threes in transition, but we do that by how hard we run the floor. And so in this drill, you're looking for your stops, and then can we flow into taking great shots in the first 7 seconds? It's really what we want to do. Like, can we go get the shot we want in the first 7 seconds? If not, we should be getting into offense. And so, that's a drill in which we're constantly talking about what is a great shot for us. And that's different from person to person on the floor, right? Like all shots aren't created equal within our offense. Like there's certain people that can shoot the wide open 3 in transition. There's certain people that need to get to, the nail, get to the elbow. There's certain people that should be, if I got a kick ahead and there's nobody in front of me, I'm looking to attack that thing. So, for your offense, you got to figure out what shots you want in those first 7 seconds. But that's the drill that I love to do so that you're able to have consistent reps on, hey, this is a great shot for us. And we want to try to get these type of shots every single time down the floor.
Yep. I love that, Coach. And that is an awesome drill. I love what you say there about if they miss the first free throw, it's -1. I had never heard that before, and I like that. I like that instead of the +1. And then what do you do when it goes 5-on-5? Because this is something with that drill I've changed through the years, and I don't know the right answer. But when it gets to 5-on-5, if a team scores initially 5-on-5, do you end it or do you keep letting them get up and down until there's a dead ball?
I judge it based on what I feel our team needs in the moment, right?
Yeah,
like
same.
I don't want them to just feel like, oh, they score, we got the 5-on-5, we score, we stop, and we got to stop. No, like we're gonna play. And sometimes I feel like we need more conditioning,
right?
Then we're gonna do it. And because whoever started that drill on the 2-on-1, at this point they're gassed.
They're gassed, exactly.
They're gassed.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like we need that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can trick yourself into some better shape by playing basketball at a fast pace versus just running sprints.
Right.
So it's a great way to get our team into shape. I'd like to start our practice out with probably 3 or 4 fast-paced transition drills that we do on a regular basis that we are forcing ourselves to get in some shape. There's certain drills, like we do an Iowa layups drill that if we can get 12 or 13 consistently as far as made layups, then we're going with pace. Like to even get 13 layups off, you have to go with pace. You cannot walk it. You got to make great passes.
Yep.
And if you can make them at that pace now, and that becomes a norm for you, that starts to mean that you're in good shape. And so a lot of what we do just to make sure that we're in shape is that we're playing at a fast pace a lot of times.
Right. I love that.
So on that drill, I switch it up, man. It just depends.
Yeah, that's I've grown to do the same. I used to do where we would end at the 5-on, but then I started thinking the same thing. I like that. Keep it going.
Well, and two, like as you get good at that drill, like if you're a team like us that likes to press, and then you start realizing, hey, we're down right now in the 5-on-5. We should be hopping into our press.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, you start seeing how your point guards are managing the game, and those, like we'll do Michigan State for like 8 minutes, and so that last group that goes for like, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, they start playing it like they should be playing like a game. They should be thinking, if you're up, how do we protect this lead? And if you're down, what are the things that we need to do to get the lead, right? Like,
Right.
we scored it, like we should be getting right to a man and we should be getting to a press. So I like it gives you a great chance to do that. And sometimes I'll even say like, hey, the last minute of the game, you got timeouts. So if you want to advance the ball, you can advance the ball. There's different things you can do with that drill, but I think it's a great way to learn how to play with pace. It's a great way to learn how to read situations and scenarios as far as your 3-on-2s, your 4-on-3s. And then you can harp on the things that you want to harp on. We want to get a paint touch every possession. And that paint touch can be off of post feed. It can be off dribble penetration. It can be off of somebody cut to the basket. We hit them on a cut. But we want to find a way to get the ball to the paint every possession. For us, that's what's led to us being one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country. And I say free throw shooting teams, not percentage-wise, but free throws made.
Right.
Made and attempted.
Yep.
You got to do a better job of that percentage, but we get to the free throw line a lot, and we draw a lot of fouls because of our emphasis of getting the ball to the paint, and that plays into our game plan as well.
Yep. I noticed that on watching Synergy, Coach. You guys were hunting the paint, hunting layups, and then they also did a great job when they engaged too, is spraying it out to the open shooters and sharing the ball.
Yeah, I think our posts were really unselfish when it came to recognizing the doubles, and late in the season we got double teamed a lot, and so we'll change up some of the actions that we do with our post feeds this year, but our last few years we've always we dive the post, we dive the other post, dive them to the backside, and then fill spots around the perimeter. And so our bigs got used to knowing where, like, I'm gonna have a dive every time. I'm gonna have a ball side kick, and I'm gonna either have one or two backside kicks to look for. And so they found their windows, and when they recognized where double teams were coming from, and were able to feed people. And we scored a lot off that post to post dive.
Right.
We also scored a lot off of just the offensive rebound from that post dive, and a whole lot. So, but our bigs were unselfish, and our guards also did a great job of getting to the paint, landing on two, and finding their teammates as well. So
I love it. It's music to my ears, Coach. When you have an unselfish team playing off two, smart, sharing the ball, it's a dangerous offense. I wanted to ask you about something you said. You like to start practice fast with some layup drills, speed drills. That's one thing that I'm always intrigued by, is just kids coming into the gym. Do they have a routine, your players? That's something I'm struggling with right now. When our guys come in the gym, it's taken too long before that clock hits zero to really be ready. And I want to improve our readiness next year, if that makes sense. So do you have routines for each player, or what does before that clock hits, zero and now we're starting? What does that look like at a practice, Coach?
Man, I think that's something that every situation is just different for every college coach, because we're not pros. And so we have to deal with class schedules. We have to deal with when we can get on the floor. And so our men go on the floor before us a lot of times. And so, there's some days where we may have an hour and a half of the floor being empty before we have practice. And there's some days where we're following up the men and we're waiting on the men to get off. And so it's tough to have a consistent before pre-practice routine, so to speak, unless you kind of establish your pre-practice routine once you can take the floor. And so, we tend to kind of try to do it week by week. And so there's some days where, 30 minutes or an hour before practice, they're getting some position work in. But the main thing is, we know when we're about to have our official practice, there's a 15-minute warm-up with our strength coach. And I know everybody doesn't have a strength coach, but her job is to get them ready for practice.
Right.
Like, her job is to, we're going to stretch a little bit, but her last 4 or 5 minutes of her warm-up, she's doing some type of active warm-up. And that may be, and she changes it up. She does a good job. Sometimes it's whatever slide work she wants to do. Sometimes it's like some shell type actions or agility type stuff. But her job is to essentially make sure we're talking, we got a sweat going, and we're loose and going for practice. And you're still gonna have days where they're like, I stayed up all night writing 2 papers and
Right.
or studying for a test, and it just is what it is. And I think the really good coaches find ways to adjust, but um, I and some days I'll tweak my shooting goal. Like we're doing a shooting drill, um, and I feel like our energy is not great, and maybe this doesn't make me a great coach, but like rather than have if I'm doing a 2-minute shooting drill and I'm trying to make 50 makes in 2 minutes just so I can keep practice positive. If I don't think we're going to make that goal, instead of putting a time on it, I might just do make 50 shots
Right.
in this drill, right? And
Yep.
so, so I can kind of fake some positive like
Sure. Yep.
momentum at the very beginning of practice.
Yep.
And I think that's one thing I think our we try to do a good job of is our assistant coaches and that's strength coach, that's our athletic trainer, but everybody that touches practice, our job is to come into practice with the right mentality. And it starts with me. If I come in and they see I'm pissed off for whatever happened just right before practice versus coming in positive,
Right.
then they feed off that.
Yep.
So I try to do a good job of setting the tone with getting PTs before practice. If there's music going, I might be dancing, or our assistant coach. Like we want to try to create that positive
Right.
energy before practice. But when it comes to routines, I don't have a set routine for everybody. We want to, as much as we can during the season, have opportunities for them to get with their position coaches before practice or after practice. But I want to make sure, though, that 15 or minute, whatever warm-up we have with our strength coach is really good. And once season hits, we're watching so much film before practice, like right before practice. A lot of times that pre-practice work happens before we even watch film, right? So I try not to stay in film too long, and we always say that sometimes it gets lengthy, but that's why when you leave film going into practice, like how we structure practice, I think is important. And I also think it's important not to be – I almost think it's better not to have the same routine all the time once you get into January and February.
Right.
So sometimes I go right into like after we stretch, we go right into press offense versus whatever press we want to do.
Yep.
Do something up tempo to get us going, and then we break up into whatever we want to do.
Yep.
But I think like just really good coaches have a pulse on that team, and so every team is different, man. Like you have some players that you have to realize like she's got to get going for us to get going.
Yep.
Or he's got to get going for us to get going, and his energy matters. And so like pouring into that person as to like making sure they're checking themselves for practice because they feed off of you. And so that's why we're both gray in the chin right now.
Right. Exactly, coach. But no, I love that. That goes back to your culture. We had Sundance Wicks on this podcast, and he talked about, he used the term protect the vibe.
Yeah.
As head coaches, that's part of our mainly our response to protect the vibe. When the vibe of your team needs to be changed up, and you got to do it.
I was with him about a month ago in Orlando. I watched him speak at the Brian Stanchek's head coach training center. He was out there, and that was right before he just got a job. Yep. I think he got a job the next day. He spoke, and then the next day it was announced, and maybe he already knew he was going, but it was announced the next day. So it was really, I thought he did a great job. Talking about his transition and the things that made him basically essentially what made him a great coach and what allowed him to get. Was he at Wyoming now? Is that right?
Yep, he's at Wyoming.
Yeah, just got the Wyoming job. So
well, he's a good guy, but it goes to that culture, coach, and you guys have that there. And I love what you said about your assistant coaches, your trainer, everybody on staff having that positive mentality when you walk in. So we're all at our best. And as head coaches, we have to have that. So what do you do with assistant coaches? And I'm sure you hire them, so you have this talk beforehand. But how do you keep that all year? Because we all have families, we all have life and things that can happen. How do you keep that vibe all year long, from October all the way through March with your staff?
Yeah. I think there's two things that I would say I think I did this year. One is just realize they're human. And that's the first, like life's going to happen. And I was fortunate this year to have more staff than I've ever had. I went from A&M Commerce to here, and I more than doubled the size of my staff.
Right.
So obviously everybody, doesn't have the luxury of delegating some of the responsibilities, and if somebody has to leave, we have coverage for different things. But life hit our team and our staff hard this year from it's a lot of outside family things that we had to cover for each other.
Yep.
And so we had coaches that had to miss for like a week in the middle of the season multiple times, and we didn't miss a beat either. And so, but I think that started like our culture of wanting to help each other started in the summer, in the spring, and when we got close as a unit, our team just fed off of our staff throughout the year. One thing we started doing, and I had to do it for me to manage people and make sure we were all on the same page. We just do Monday meetings, and I mean the whole staff.
Okay.
And so like this morning, we had a Monday meeting. It was the first of the summer, and there's probably 14 people in my office. I got 7 coaches, including myself, on the staff. So Dobo, 5 assistant coaches, myself. Then I have an athletic trainer, a sports psychologist.
Wow.
Our strength coach, our academic advisor. We have a nutritionist. Our SID is now in the meetings. We have our athletic marketing person that I want in the meetings, and then my sport admin. So, and he comes when he can come. He's the deputy athletic director, so he only comes when he can come. But we set the tone, right? Yep. So we do a devotional every Monday, and we pass it. So today I do it, and I have people sign up. Yep. But I want everybody that touches our players to do it. And the devotional doesn't have to be spiritual. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be motivational. Like we're going to set the tone for our team on Mondays. We're going to set the tone for ourselves on Monday. Yep. So we got to realize, like, whatever's going on outside these walls, if we're here, then we got to be here, right? And there's sometimes there's things you got to take care of, and you got to be able to have time to do that. And I think head coaches got to realize, like, you're a good enough coach to be able to cover for somebody. And if sometimes that means, like, coach, I got to come in late today. Coach, I got to, as long as they're communicating, like, that's part of leadership. Like, you have to allow people to be great at home. If they can be great at home, then they can be great here. Right. It's when they don't have balance. And we don't have a staff that abuses that. They're just constantly coming in late. But, like, man, my kid is sick. I got to go home today. If I'm not a good enough head coach to be able to cover this Tuesday and maybe Wednesday while your kids are sick, and you not stress out about your coach freaking out on you, then when they do come back to work, like they're 10 toes down. They feel like they were able to be a great husband, to be a great wife, to be a great dad, son, brother, whatever it is. If they can do those things and feel like their head coach has their back, then that's when it really becomes like a family.
Yep.
And my team's just left. I don't know.
It's working, Coach. Here. No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
I just can't see you.
Yep.
So, sorry, but
you're not missing anything, Coach. I can see you're good. You're good. You're good.
So with that being said, like those Monday meetings became great. Another thing we started doing with the Monday meetings was we just as we passed it around, you got to see what's important to other people, right? Okay. So, like for me, or just hearing like our strength coach do stuff, and you start to get to know these people. You start to get to know their family. The more they're doing it, but also they feel included.
Yeah,
and that's the first time where I think some of those people, whether it's a strength coach or nutritionist, felt like they had a voice and they're invested in the team. And I think that was one of the things with our entire program is that I felt like everybody felt like they had a part of winning.
Yes.
Right. And I think when people feel like they have a part of winning, because sometimes we ask a lot of people that feel like they're not really a part of it, whether that's your academic advisor or, for us, and maybe you guys have a guy that does graphics. It's not necessarily on your staff, but, those people, when you include them in things and they feel like they're a part of the brainstorming, they're a part of the, okay, this is what's going on. Then all of a sudden too, like you start seeing people hang out outside of work that they didn't really have a connection before. And sometimes when you get people that are new to a situation and don't feel like they, especially in college, like they don't feel like they have a family there, well, all of a sudden you've created that. It's different. And it's all about people feeling like they have a vested interest in what's going on. And so we try to do that this year. And we're carrying that over into next year as far as those meetings. And I think that was one thing that was great, and it set the tone for the week every week. And
Right.
we stayed positive and we stayed locked in on the things that matter. And so I encourage. That's one of the things that I'm really passionate about is leadership, man, and culture.
Right.
And so I feel like for me as a head coach, I have to do a great job of continuing to keep my cup full so I can pour into others. And that's one way, man. That's to pass out those devotionals and allow people to bring encouragement to the rest of the staff, man. That's something that you need as a head coach too.
Yep. Absolutely love that, coach. That's so good. And one thing with that too is, we want our players to have unity and be a family and be a team. And sometimes I see certain programs saying that about their kids, but their staff isn't modeling that,
Yeah.
as coaches.
And they feel that.
And they feel that. Exactly. And then it's refreshing to have a staff like yours, and you're empowering your staff as the leader of the staff, and your kids see that, and believe me, they feed off that, and it makes for then a bigger family, which is your whole program, and that's special.
And I say one thing I felt like probably as a younger head coach is I felt like I had to control everything. I felt like I had to have my handprint on everything, and so you said that about, well, you hired everybody, and that's something that's so important, man. Like through the hiring process, people sometimes rush that process. Like they feel like I got the job, I got to get hired, I got to hire a staff, or they don't value that process enough. And the first thing that I did when I got the job was I spent a week on the staff. And I think the thing for a lot of people when they get a job is like, I gotta get into the portal. Like I gotta go get players. I just felt like if I get the right people, we're gonna get the players.
Yep.
Right. And so don't make the misstep of hiring or rushing the process of getting the staff right, or feeling like there's not going to be players later on, and you got to dive into the portal right away. And I feel like, let me get the staff and let me get the right people. That way I can delegate this help, or I can delegate the needs of our program to the right people, and they can be a part of the ground up. Like they can be a part of this recruiting process. And so and the evaluation process, because that was just as important, like evaluating the players that are currently here, and who makes sense for our culture and all that, and making sure, like, are you seeing the same things I'm seeing?
Right.
And I was able to get my first picks on my staff, and that was something that was huge, and I hired to my weaknesses, man. I think there's some people that don't necessarily do that. Like you got to hire people that are going to make you better, and not be afraid to hear people, and not be afraid to have people that are going to challenge you, but challenge you the right way. But also I have people that ask me on a regular basis, Coach, how you doing? Like, Coach, what do you need? And I don't think I've ever had that to this degree. Like, people that really, like, you feel like have your back.
What do you need?
And head coaches need that.
Absolutely, we do. Yep, absolutely. Coach, I love that. That's very smart, the taking time to put your staff together. I heard Mark Cuban recently on a podcast, and he said anything that older Mark Cuban would advise younger Mark Cuban, and he said, hire slower, fire faster. So, take your time really vetting people. And, and then if you knew you made a mistake, it's, but no, that's great. And that's exactly what you do. And you put together a great staff there. Coach, I wanted to ask you, and this has been great. I don't want to take too much of your time, 10 more minutes is okay. But I did want to ask you about your staff. How do you utilize your staff during the game? I know you're calling a lot of offense, and you mentioned a couple of staff members were doing some defense. But I did want to just ask, do you give them specific responsibilities? Do you have some of them doing some different stats? What does in-game look like for your assistant coaches?
Yeah, I have a large staff too. So
it's a lot of different roles.
Some of the normal, right? Somebody's got, like, I think sometimes we as we get into like this era of technology and all this, sometimes we forget about, like, the basics got to be covered. Like, I still need to know how many amounts I have. I didn't know who's in foul trouble. And I think our staff does a great job of I do still do the substitutions, because to me that's a part of like the flow and the like just thinking about the situations, and everybody's different with that. But my assistant coaches also know, like, if I didn't realize somebody is in foul trouble, they got 2 fouls, and we need to get them out the game. And they do that. And there's some, like, we toward the end of our year last year, we started realizing who was really good based on out of bounds defense.
Okay.
And so it became automatic in certain situations, like based on the bounds, go sub her in right now.
Right.
And it was a post for us. It was a post that just held down the paint for us. And so we got to the point where that was automatic. And so if I wasn't paying attention to that, like they just did that right away.
Yep.
Obviously we got, and there's certain things that we want to chart. Like I want to know how often are we getting to the paint? Like paint touches. I want to stat that. I want to know that. Depending on whose scout it is, obviously they're talking, they're calling out stuff, and we're talking a little bit more. We're charting, like we chart times in which we got the shot. We also we chart like what's worked for us in game, like what sets have worked for us in game.
Yep.
Right, and to make sure that we're going to those things. We also have somebody that's charting what they're doing.
Sure.
Especially the teams that we're going to play multiple times, we're charting that.
Yep.
But like my associate head coach, I want her to I don't want her charting anything really. I want her. And I have a couple coaches that I just want them to be able to watch the game so that in the timeout we can talk about something.
Sure.
I feel like if you're always charting something, then you're only looking at certain things.
Yep.
And so there's a couple, because I have such a big staff, I want like my top 2 assistant coaches or, my associate coach and whoever has that scout to have the flexibility to be able to watch the game.
Absolutely.
And that way we can talk about adjustments, because that's what in-game is about, man. Like who can make the best in-game adjustments. First half, things kind of like you're kind of going with your original game plan, but it's like at the end of the first quarter or definitely at halftime, like, all right, what adjustments do we need to make?
Right.
What am I missing out there? And then I think our big coaches do a really good job of watching the bigs. Our guard coaches do a really good job of watching the guards, having those conversations. We got somebody that, and it's a manager for us, but we have somebody that watches the bench and as far as like keeping people off the floor, like I had to assign that to somebody, but also I had to give him the task that, and it was only probably a couple games, but he was in charge of our bench energy.
Okay. Yep.
So if our bench energy wasn't there, like, what are you doing? Like, that's your job, is to make sure our bench has energy.
Yep.
And so, like, I'm probably missing a couple of things because we're a little bit removed from the season, but those are the main things, man. It was, we no longer have the challenge deal, so I don't, like, I know some people watch the iPad on the side. If we had still, we probably would have somebody with an iPad, but we don't have that anymore. I mean, last year we had it, but.
Yep. And that's such a difference too between Division III, maybe, where you might have one assistant coach and maybe a GA if you're lucky. And, you're at UNT where you have the big staff. And when I was a Division III head coach at Laterno, I didn't want my top assistant having a clipboard. I wanted him to see the game, to have those conversations, to communicate with me and the team at timeouts and halftime, and not just stats, but it would be nice to have that. What you have is that big staff too, to kind of get a little bit of everything there.
I played D3 and I started coaching D3.
Yeah. So,
So I know. I work from the ground up, man. Me and Mark Kellogg over at, both went to Austin College. He's a little bit older than me though.
Okay.
If you hadn't had him, that's a great basketball minded.
Okay.
You need to find a way to get him on the podcast.
Well, I will, Coach. And just 2 more questions, a little bit specific to North Texas and Denton. First, high school kids right now, it's tough for them to get recruited. Coaching high school now, you got to be really good, to play at your level, first of all. And then also with the portal, and then that COVID year also made it a little bit harder. But I know we're rolling off that. But what advice would you give out there, maybe to some high school coaches, and then maybe even players that will listen to this podcast about things that maybe North Texas is looking for, and even how to get seen if you're not on one of those, elite teams or on that elite list?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to unpack now. And
it's a lot.
I think what people have to realize is recruiting has changed.
Right.
It has changed, and it's going to keep changing, but it's going to be harder for high school players to get recruited in the spring than in the fall. So one, they need to realize that. Like
Okay.
if you have opportunities to sign in the fall, you need to do that. Like the days of when a player tells me, yeah, I want to play my senior year and I'm gonna make a decision in the spring and we're talking to you in the summer and we've already offered you, like that's a turnoff to me. Like I'm probably gonna spend less time recruiting you and I'm gonna move on to a high school kid that is open to signing in the fall, because when I compare you in the spring to this person that I've seen on Synergy or I've seen play live, I know immediately they can help us right away.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 1 year. I mean, these are 1 year contracts now.
Yep. Yep.
And so if you're not going to sign in the fall, I'm probably going to shift. And I'll just tell you the way we look at it.
Sure. That's what. Yep.
Summer and fall, we're trying to sign high school.
Okay. Yep.
We are watching JUCO all throughout the fall to March. And if we get a JUCO commit that we really like during the season, then we're probably going to roll with that JUCO player. And then once the spring hits, yeah, we're still open to JUCO and we're still open to high school. But when we compare you side by side, it's no longer about, well, this player can help us 2 years from now. Like, no, who can help us right now?
Now.
Yep. Because also we have a better feel for our team at this point.
Yep.
And who panned out from the previous class and who got better and from our previous season and where we're at now. Like we have a better feel for who's returning on our team too. And so it is important in the summertime to play, but it's also important for high school coaches to realize you need to play in your state's scholastic event. Yep. If you're in Texas and you're not playing at the TABC event in June, like it's next week for us.
Yep.
You're hurting your players' chances of getting recruited. I told my staff this 3 times in the last week. The best event that we're going to go to this year is the TABC event.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because now all of a sudden there's like almost 200 teams in this event. It's not about, well, this girl plays on the Nike circuit, this girl plays on the Under Armour circuit, this girl's playing on whatever shoe circuit, or she's on the Select 40 or this or that. Like, no, we're able to see the best kids in Texas play at one location. Yep. It's
so good.
All the San Antonio, all the Houston, they're all at
everywhere.
One place.
Yep.
And that's what we've been wanting, right? So now all of a sudden, you don't have to be on an Under Armour team to get seen.
Yep.
If you reached out and we see any video on you too, like that would be my thing, is playing that event and leading up into that event. Like I'm emailing, hey, I'm going to be at this TABC event. Now it's easy for coaches, right? Like I'm already going to be there. Let me go check out this kid that she is 6'2", or let me go check out this kid that she shot 40% from 3 last year.
Right.
Like now and then if you pass the eye test while I'm there, now all of a sudden I'm reaching out. Hey, tell me about this kid. She was only 5'8", but she did XYZ well. Is she playing on an AAU team? Now maybe in July I follow up again. Or you were good enough that now, like, look, we need to get her to campus.
Yep.
So that there is an event that allows for level playing field.
Yep.
That was something that I think a lot of coaches fought for, like this Scholastic event. Like we need it.
Yep.
The days of I remember being on the men's side and the Great American Shootout. And it wasn't about a shoe team. It was just like all the teams went to that event. And those, because of these circuits, the shoe circuits, it's hard. It's hard for coaches to cover and to see a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And so if you're not on our radar, or you're not you're not playing a team that's on our radar, or playing with a player that's on our radar, it's going to be hard to get seen.
Yep.
Like I'm not even going to Texas in July.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to 3 different cities outside of Texas in July. And I know that there's a tournament in Denton, but there's certain kids that from Texas I have to see. Yeah. So that's why I said I'm so excited about the TABC Scholastic event for Texas. And we are, and as other states do a good job of developing their Scholastic events, we'll send people out. We have a coach on our staff going to Indiana. We feel like the 26 and 27 and 28 classes in Indiana are really good. Mm-hmm. He's from Indiana. Yep. Let's send him out there and let's get a head start on some of those too.
Makes sense.
So to me, like having a background and being knowledgeable about how these coaches are recruiting nowadays,
Right.
And then the last, and then playing in these scholastic events, get your high school coach to play in those events, get your teammates to want to play in those events.
Right.
You got to do that. Obviously, elite camps are still a thing. So go to elite camps, go play those. I don't even do kid camps anymore. And I only do an elite camp, and I do an elite camp for the purpose of being able to see kids.
Yeah.
Can they handle coaching? Can they play like we want to play? Can we get them to our campus? And I can talk to you unlimited while you're here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way for young kids to get on the radar. I really recommend that for young kids. Like, if you're going to be a freshman, sophomore, like go to elite camps.
Yeah.
Get in front of these people early on.
Yep.
Right. And then the last thing I'll say is I don't love where we're going with recruiting, and you're about to, if you were still at LeTourneau, or you would hate what I'm about to say, but there's so many people that, like, once you get to college, like, you have the ability to hit the portal and go up.
Yep.
So go, and I don't think you should go for the purpose of doing that, but if you go somewhere and you have success and you want to leave for whatever reason, you have that ability to do that.
Right.
So don't just say no to people. But what is important though is going to find a fit for you. Right. And I think the better job you do of researching to figure out what the fit is for you, the more you can have success. And but I do encourage people to find a fit and thrive in that fit, man.
Yep.
And sometimes there's going to be an opportunity that you just can't turn down, and I get that, but people have to realize too, the men's side is completely different. Like, I'm seeing people make $600,000, $1 million. Like, but the women's side, there's $10,000, and I'm not saying that's nothing, but it's not necessarily worth going to a situation that's not the best for you, or $1,000 or whatever. Like, you got to go to what's going to set you up for your future too. Yep. And so I just think that people have to have good coaches and good people in their ear telling the right things and educating. Yep. But the recruiting has changed. It's not the recruiting that it was 2 years ago. It's definitely not the recruiting it was 5 years ago prior to COVID. Yep. And so this thing is constantly evolving. So you got to go where you're wanted and where you're needed.
Yep. Absolutely. Stay around knowledgeable, caring people, stay in the know, stay in the 2024 because it's a different time. Coach, this has been fantastic. Before I let you go, we always ask our guests a restaurant recommendation if they're coming to watch a home game, watch you guys play in Denton. Where are you sending them to eat, either after or before?
You're about to get me in trouble with all of like Denton area. So I got to give a few. Then if you want seafood, I'm going to Frilly's. Okay. It's a really good spot, man. They got all kind of fish, different toppings, Oscar style, all that kind of good. If you want a sandwich, Subhub, it's right here. It's probably the best sandwich spot in Denton. Okay. Probably my favorite sandwich spot, period.
Nice.
If you want to go, Beth Marie's has the best homemade ice cream. Ever. You got to go to Beth Marie's. And if you're on the square too, they got LSA Burger. The square is probably the spot. There's so many spots on the square and around the square. The after game spots probably.
Go celebrate the win.
But that's the square. So hit up the Denton Square. They got all the local spots. And it's really, I mean, this Denton is a great place. They got great food. I love it.
Yep, absolutely. Coach, it's a great place, and you are a great coach and a great guest today. Can't wait to watch what you continue to do with that program. All the success to you, Coach, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on today.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I'll say this, Princess Davis on my staff and Olivia Hunt, who's on my staff, she was like, I went to Austin College too. She was on my window when I waved her off. Love it. They are our recruiting coordinators, and they do a great job with our elite camp. So I will say this, like we talked about it. If you're hearing this podcast, you are a player. We have an August 3rd elite camp. Come to it, sign up for it. It's a great chance to get seen by us, to get on our radar, and to visit our beautiful campus. Go eat at some of those places we just talked about, and get a chance to learn from our staff.
I already can think of a couple girls here in the Central Texas, Coach. I'm going to be telling about this elite camp.
We'd love to have them.
Yep, I'm going to. Coach, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Keep it rolling over there. Wow, thank you again for joining us. And just a reminder to do us a huge favor and hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, Apple Podcasts. Shout out to our sponsors, Pie Society, great pizza, excellent stop here in San Marcos. Zelix, stop in there, grab a beer, hang out with friends, have a good time. Shout out to our podcast producer, Jude McLaren. And thank you to Jason Burton, an excellent guest, excellent coach. And until next time, thank you for talking basketball with Let's Talk